Hey there, Alex Kidman from finder.com.au with our video review of the Samsung Galaxy S8 and S8 Plus. Now, the S8 Plus is Samsung's big premium phone for 2017, or at least it will be until they presumably replace it with some kind of Note replacement later in the year, although given what happened with the Note 7, that's far from assured. So what do I like about this phone? Well, let's start with the design, and the design really is quite eye-catching. Samsung's used what it's calling the infinity display, which is a fancy way of saying that it has the same kind of curved display that it's put on previous phones, such as the S7 Edge, for example, or indeed the aforementioned Note 7, but it's taken it to the extremes. So this is a phone with very, very little bezel. There's a very small amount of bezel at the top and bottom, and that's all you get. And that allows it to fit quite a lot of display screen into quite a small space. On the S8, you're looking at a 5.8-inch Quad HD screen. On the S8 Plus, that bumps up to 6.2 inches. Those should, for classical phone designs, be huge. I mean, absolutely enormous in the hand, but instead you get something that's generally quite manageable, although the S8 Plus is admittedly a very large phone. You've got to like very large phones for that to work. The two models I've tested out have been the Midnight Black variants, but they're also available in Orchid Grey and Maple Gold in Australia. They're slightly more eye-catching, but frankly, no matter which unit you pick, they're eye-catching phones. They're really nicely designed phones. Those smooth sides look really, really good. And the curve in this particular phone is arguably best suited just for its visual appeal. I'll get to that shortly though. What else is admirable about this particular phone? Well, it's got a powerful processor. Here in Australia, we get the S8 and S8 Plus variants with the Exynos 8995 processors within them. Internationally, you're more likely to come across the Snapdragon 835 variant. I haven't tested with the Snapdragon 835, so how it compares to the Exynos I can't say, but what I can say is that the Exynos is a really fast and powerful processor. I haven't hit an app I can throw at the S8 that particularly stumps it. In benchmarking terms, it performs quite well, getting a score of 6628 in Geekbench 4's CPU multi-core test. In 3D benchmarking software, a little lower. It didn't particularly impress on 3DMark's iStorm Unlimited test, but frankly, in real-world gaming use, again, I really couldn't push this beyond its limits. I couldn't get this to particularly stutter or fail on just about any gaming app I threw at it. The S8 features a 3000 milliamp battery, where the S8 Plus features a 3500 milliamp battery. Now that's not the biggest that you can get in a phone, but Samsung's battery management really, really works well. If you push any phone super hard, yes, you can make it run flat during a day. But for moderate users, this is an easy all-day phone, possibly even a 2-day phone in the case of the S8 Plus, which really does have impressive battery life. You'd expect that out of a larger phone though. The S8 and S8 Plus are both water-resistant phones, so can I dunk them in water? You bet I can. Now that's clean water, and you've got to specify that because that's the way water-resistant ratings work. The reality here is that if you drop it in the surf, if you drop it in some other kind of liquid, or you pour your beer over it accidentally, it's probably, but not definitely going to be okay. If you just drop it in basic clean water, it should come out fine, as long as you remove it reasonably quickly. I wouldn't necessarily go scuba diving with these phones, if you know what I mean. Charging is via USB-C or wireless. That all-glass back makes it very easy for it to do wireless, although predictably that's a little slower than doing a cable charge. You are provided with a fast charger in the box. Samsung also provides a micro USB to USB-C adapter, so even if you don't have your own phone adapter with you, as long as you've got that adapter, you could use someone else's. In terms of network speed, this is also the fastest phone that you can buy. It's using Qualcomm's X16 LTE modem. That's the same modem that you find in Telstra's Nighthawk M1 hotspot, with a top speed range of 1 gigabit. Now, you're not going to get that in real-world use, and I certainly haven't seen that in real-world use, but you can easily peak up to around 100, 150, even in relatively busy conditions. That's within areas that obviously have support for that, and it gives it a nice kind of future-proofing angle, at least until 5G comes along. Now, the camera on the S8 and S8 Plus, and it's identical across both devices, sits kind of in my recommend but only just position. And the reason for that is that it's a decent little camera. On the rear, there's a 12 megapixel sensor. On the front, it's an 8. And you can take some really quite nice pictures with this thing. Definitely, it can definitely take good photos. And this is true, of course, of any smartphone camera. You can take good photos, you can take bad photos with any of them. The issue that I have is that Samsung has basically taken the same hardware that it had last year and put it into this phone. When you look at competitors who are going into dual lens solutions, so you've got things like the Huawei P10 or Mate 9, which has a dual Leica lens, one monochrome, one color. Or you've got the iPhone 7, and obviously lots of Android users are not particularly big iPhone fans, but the iPhone 7, which has a small-scale zoom lens. You've got the LG G6, which has got a regular and widescreen lens. Oppo is talking up its 5x lens for future phones. Samsung just has a straight lens, and it's a little bit of an ordinary play in this market. It's not a bad camera, but it's not a great camera, and at premium prices, perhaps it should be. Every phone has its downsides though. So what don't I like about the S8 and S8 Plus? Well, to pick on the S8 Plus first, most manufacturers, when they make a Plus phone, throw all the goodies in there. It's not just, hey, this has a bigger screen and a bigger battery. It's, hey, it's got a better camera, or it's got some kind of touch functionality, or there's some other differentiating factor. Samsung haven't gone down that path. The S8 Plus is just the S8 on growth hormones. It's just bigger and it has a bigger battery. Now, neither of those things are a bad thing, but that's all you're paying for. That's the only justification in price. I would say that the S8 is probably enough phone for most people. If you love a huge phone, by all means, the S8 Plus will suit you very nicely. But Samsung perhaps could have done more there to differentiate the two lines and to really justify that asking price on the S8 Plus. Both phones feature a variety of different ways to unlock. There's iris scanning, which was also a feature on the Note 7, and like the Note 7, it just does not work all that well. It will eventually work for you, but you've got to tilt the phone around. You've got to have the lighting right. If you wear glasses, as I do, it's even worse, and ultimately, it's just not quicker. And that's really what iris scanning should allow you to do. You should be able to just go, flip, I want the phone up, I want the iris scanning enabled, and I want my phone unlocked just like that. Instead, quite often I just found it was easier to put in a password or a PIN code than use the iris scanning. It has facial recognition as well, although that's not super secure because it's just going off an image of your face. You can fool it with another image of your face, which means someone else can do that too. Finally, there's the fingerprint sensor. Now, the fingerprint sensor is reasonably fast because everyone's fingerprint sensors are fast. That's not a huge differentiating factor. But the problem here is that Samsung's decided to place the fingerprint sensor on the back of the phone right next to the camera lens. This means you're going to smudge up that camera lens something fierce while you feel around for where the fingerprint sensor is. It's only got the lightest of indents around it, so it's kind of tough to find. And that means, again, that it's just slower to get it working, and it's just that little bit more frustrating than it should be. Samsung's talked a big talk about how brilliant Bixby, its AI assistant, is going to be. Keywords there are is going to be, because the reality for Australians at launch is that Bixby is pretty horribly limited. It doesn't understand Australian accents as yet. And look, that's not a unique problem. We've seen that across a lot of voice-activated assistants. But what it really means is that it's not any better than the inbuilt Google Assistant. In fact, it's markedly worse. You can use it for image analysis, but typically it just returns a Pinterest result of something that maybe vaguely looks like the thing that you pointed it at, but not credibly so. I love the visual of the Edge display, of the Infinity display, but what I don't love is that Samsung is still struggling to come up with a reason to use it in an app sense. They have what they call Edge displays, and again, this is nothing new. They've had them on previous generations of these style of phones. And they don't do anything that you can't do from regular Android. You've got contacts, you've got frequent apps, you've got a little clipboard. You can do all of these things through a regular Android app, and typically a fair bit faster, because the action to actually invoke the Edge, which you're meant to be able to do from pretty much anywhere, just doesn't work reliably enough. About half the time I end up swiping across the app I happen to be in with unpredictable results, because it depends on what app I'm actually in when I want to invoke the Edge. It's essentially a solution in search of a problem. And there's a big part of me that says, yeah, look, Samsung, just give it away. It's not really working for you. The other final, mildly disappointing factor with the S8 and S8 Plus is they've only got mono speakers, and these are premium phones. And while you can't get a lot of stereo separation in a speaker that's on a phone of this size, it's nice if they at least try. The positioning of the speaker on the S8 and S8 Plus also means that you're quite likely to muffle it with your palm. So if you're someone who does enjoy using your phone as a little music speaker, or if you're using it because you're using the phone on loudspeaker mode, you've got to hold it fairly carefully lest you muffle the voice or singing of the person you're listening to. So what's the final verdict? Well, look, the S8 and S8 Plus are great phones, no doubt about it. Easy top 5 contenders, and I'd say right now, the S8 is the best phone you can buy. As always though, you should compare and contrast to what's already out there. So what are the competitors? Who would I say are right up there? Well, if you want a really good looking phone, if it's the design that appeals to you, you should perhaps consider HTC's U Ultra. Now that's not as powerful a phone, but it is a powerfully good looking phone. If you want something with more camera grunt, consider something like the LG G6 or Huawei's Mate 9 if you want a big phablet sized phone. Sony's also got its Xperia XZ Premium coming soon, and there's the Huawei P10 which should be announced in Australia any day soon. They're all worth a look. That being said, the S8 especially, and the S8 Plus if you like a larger phone, are exceptionally good phones and they really do come. Highly recommended. Thanks for watching.